My name is Anthony Simon, and I'm running business development for CSR. And I'm here to talk about new trends in location technology and to talk a little bit about the implications in mobile payment. So I want to cover three things today. The first is talk about challenges in the area of locations, and then to talk about the ways that we're attacking those challenges. And then the next is talk about the trends in the industry, in locations industry. And then finally, towards the end, I have a couple comments about mobile payments. So just to let you know, I'm not an expert in mobile payments, and we're looking forward to your comments. So just a quick word about CSR. It's a chip company and a software company. We sell both products into the market. We originally started about 12 years ago and became famous for creating the first commercial level Bluetooth technology. In fact, even today, much of your headsets, Nike shoes, everywhere there's Bluetooth is actually from CSR. It's a good chance it's a CSR chip. Later on, we got into audio technologies. We're a leader in camera. In fact, we have 45% of the digital still camera market, Wi-Fi, and printers. But the area that is probably one of the most interesting, the one I'm involved in, is locations technology. And CSR got into that by buying a company called Surf. For those of you from the Silicon Valley area, you might have heard of that company, which was a pioneer in the GPS chipsets many years ago. So let me ask you first, I'm sure all of you have smartphones and all of you are familiar with this map function and so forth. One of the biggest issues in location technology is accuracy, is knowing where you are. Of course, we always want to know that we're near the dot, and that blue circle around it is your area of uncertainty. That's basically the technology telling you, well, you're somewhere in that blue area. And I was thinking that, you know, for mobile payments, it's probably a very, very important issue if location is a part of your application. And in fact, the truth is, outside with satellite, if you have a clear vision of the sky, it's very accurate. It's down to less than 5 meters now of accuracy. So that blue circle is going to be very, very small. But when you walk inside, for example, if you're in here today, where you don't have a satellite signal, that level of uncertainty can go up to as high as 500 meters, which in my view is no accuracy at all. And I would argue that for mobile payments type application, it's just not workable. This is actually a map here of local mall, Valley Fair shopping center. And if you look and see half a kilometer of uncertainty means you could easily be in the neighborhood stores across the street. So beyond accuracy, there are other issues as well that we're concerned about in the locations business that has bearing, I think, on mobile payments. One I talked about is accuracy. The other is speed. You know, what good is your location if you've got to wait 5-10 minutes for it? And by the way, that used to be the case about 8 years ago. If you remember, it would take a while for your GPS system to lock on satellites and to tell you where you're located. That's actually technology's come along to speed that system up. But in general, we want to know very quickly where we are. The other is we want to know where we are no matter where we are, all over the world, inside buildings. A real ubiquitous experience is what we are seeking for our locations technology. And then finally, of course, power. We all use mobile devices. We want to have technology that doesn't use a lot of power. So what we're doing in CSR, we're actually driving a lot of these technologies across these different sectors. Obviously, handsets are very important for locations, but they're also used in cameras, for example. Clearly, automotive is very important for locations technology. And then there's uses for home as well. For example, fitness and watches and so forth that you use and need for geolocating. By the way, on a side note, CSR is in the Dr. Dre headphones. For those of you looking for headphones, it's a little side point I want to mention. Not our locations technology, but our Bluetooth. So let me just talk a little bit about the history. Many of you probably already know this. GPS systems actually started to become conceived in the late 1960s, early and through the 70s. And in fact, GPS did not become fully operational until 1994. But you can imagine that during the Cold War, the U.S. government very much needed accurate location systems, primarily for different types of aircraft navigation as well as missile guidance systems. In particular, the United States was heavily dependent on our submarine forces, which obviously come up from the water. They need to know where they are in order to do accurate targeting. So that was the genesis of the GPS system, and then became available to the public, and now obviously very much part of our lives. But you know, in the locations business, we don't talk about GPS anymore. We don't use this term GPS that much unless we're specifically talking about that system, because there's a lot more satellites going up into the sky. In fact, the Russians have launched and made available since 2007 what's called their GLONASS system. And one of my colleagues is Russian. I tried to practice this for this conference, but I'm not going to attempt it. But anyway, GLONASS is the system, and there's a lot of technical advantages to the GLONASS system, especially with altitude measurement, and that is now also available. But it's not just the Russians. Everybody's getting into this game. The Europeans are launching their own satellite system for navigation called Galileo. That'll be available in the next couple of years. The Chinese have the Compass system. These will be worldwide navigation systems. And even beyond that, countries like India, for example, are going to launch regional Indian navigation systems, as well as the Japanese will do the same. So quite literally, the sky will be filled with satellites. And you'll ask yourself, well, why do we care about this? And what does it have to do with mobile payment systems? Well, it's important because, in fact, with only 24 satellites in the sky operationally working, which was the GPS system, we did have limitations. And in fact, in an urban canyon situation where you just see a very small segment of the sky, it was very hard to get triangulation in that sort of a situation. With the multiple, in fact, up to hundreds of satellites going to be launched here over the next few years, you're going to be able to get extremely accurate locations information, even in very difficult circumstances, such as an urban canyon. By the way, it's not just urban canyons. It could be a real canyon that you also have a limited view of the sky. So that's one. Now, it's not just about satellite either. We find, and we have systems, in fact, your iPhone and your Androids also make use of other systems to triangulate and understand your location. And in fact, it's been used for quite a long time as the cellular system. So the fact that there's cell towers all over the country is another way to ascertain and make use and triangulate your position. The other nice thing about cell systems is that they work indoors. So in fact, your iPhone, when it can't get a satellite signal, it's searching then for the cell towers around to try to get a sense of where you are. The negative side is that this hasn't been as accurate. Your accuracy is not that good, though we're working on ways to make that a lot better. When you walk into a building, the other thing you can use to help with your locations is Wi-Fi placements. And in fact, this is being looked at more and more as a way to get good indoor locations capability. Now, the problem with Wi-Fi, though, is that, you know, first of all, you're not really sure where the Wi-Fi stations are. But if you're well placed you can get a pretty good position. Like, for example, in this situation where you have 3 Wi-Fi antennas and you're sort of in the concentric circles there. You can understand pretty accurately where you are. But what if you're over here? It becomes a little more difficult to triangulate. What if you're out here? Well, then you're kind of out of luck, especially if you can't see any Wi-Fi over there. So that's one of the things we're working on, is how to make the best use of Wi-Fi signals inside of a building so you can accurately understand where you are. And I think this research and this capability is very important for mobile payment systems, as I'll talk about in a minute. So what are other ways? Well, you know, many of you might have a Wii. The Wii has the remote has a gyroscope in it. And gyroscopes and accelerometers have been used for navigation for years. And now these are being driven into your handsets as well. And these are examples. You can actually use these sensors to track where you are in a building. In fact, these are examples of our latest technology. This is our office here in San Jose. We walked around the cubicles and were able to track with a high degree of accuracy our path. Similarly here, this is the Great Mall in Milpitas, which is not far from here. And you can tell this was a man, by the way, who walked through the mall, right? Because it'd be a different signature, I think. But anyway, you could see when you're outside, you can get a very accurate fix because you get the satellite signals. And then using the sensors, you can track your position as you walk through the mall. This, though, the problem with this type of technology is that it degrades over time. You need to reset it. The other thing to keep in mind is this all being tied back to a server, and the server technology is extremely important to locations. In fact, the biggest area of investment we're doing now is in server algorithms to take all these inputs, whether they be from Wi-Fi or from sensors or satellite or what have you, and really creating the best possible location point for that particular moment. So this is also becoming a bigger business for us as we grow our software as a service for locations. So what else is happening? I mentioned ubiquitousness as being important, also accuracy. There's another thing going on, which is the costs are coming down. The cost for a GPS chip about 15 years ago was around $25, $30. That's come down to below $5. Data plans have come down. And things have become a lot more mobile. So what does that mean for the industry? Well, first of all, there's going to be a big groundswell of change in what's called locate and track and machine-to-machine communication. Just imagine that for a rather cheap price, you can locate and track almost anything in your life. You can put now all this technology that you need to locate and track something into a key fob that is very, very small. Imagine, for example, going on a trip and you have some luggage. You can put a tracker on your luggage. How many times have you been worried about what's going to happen to your luggage when you put it on an airplane? There's still some issues we're working out on that particular front because you have to turn off your signals when you get into an airplane. But that's something that's solvable. The point is, you can start really thinking about tracking almost anything. You can certainly track your pets. Anyone who lives in the countryside, has pets, you can track them in a very inexpensive way. You can track your car. Say you have your parents who are getting older and you're very worried about them. You can actually install in their clothes, their shoes, tracking devices that just basically tell you they got up, they walked around, and giving you updates on their movements without them having to do anything. Shipping is a big area. You know, shipping, of course, for the last 30 years, we've been tracking and trucking and ships themselves. That's not a big deal. But what about tracking every individual pallet that comes into the country? the U.S. government actually is talking to us about different potential ways we can start tracking this sort of thing. So what I see is a massive long tail, if you will, of things that are going to be tracked and over the course of the next few years. The other is, of course, and this is probably more close to home for this audience, is in terms of applications. These are not necessarily mobile payment applications, but just to give you a sense of how important accurate locations technology is for this world. These are just examples, and probably my time is kind of limited here, but for example, sonar is the ability to go into a room and people who are linked in to immediately see who around you might know, or who may be a friend of someone else. I like Uber is an interesting online to offline locations-based app. For example, if you need a car, you can just use the app to say, look, I need a car, pick me up, and the app actually provides the location information, and a black car just comes right in front of you and picks you up. And other things like that. I mean, there's many hundreds of location-based apps. My favorite area of research right now is augmented reality, and I think this also is going to have importance in mobile payments, but it's basically the internet overlay of our reality using geospatial tagging. So as you walk around, you'll start to be able to get information that is of importance to you, presented to you, either on your browser of your cell phone or on special glasses and what have you. But it's going to be an incredibly important navigational tool. You know, my biggest beef today is that I don't want to see a dot anymore. I want the app to tell me which direction to go. And I think augmented reality is going to have a lot of important implications. Now, for mobile payments, it's actually, I put some ideas together of what may be important. One is geofencing, and this idea that if a database knows that you're inside of a say, a retail shop or something, that then transactions can happen. The other is, in terms of NFC security and so forth, you may want to locate and track your electronic payment systems. And then finally, I think navigation, helping vendors navigate to your goods, I think is very important, and you need a lot of accuracy there. This, I think you're probably all aware of, is Square. I worked with them on this slide, but basically it's the idea of a geofence system where you walk into a store, order a cup of coffee, the retailer's database knows that you're there. They can go ahead and charge the cup of coffee to your name. The payment systems go through the credit card, and the customer doesn't have to take anything out of his pocket to make this transaction happen. And my question really to this crowd is, okay, we can do geofencing, and we're doing much more accurate geofencing. For example, in a multi-story mall, if you want to do geofencing, we can certainly start to do that type of application. My question is it really that important? I don't know, and I'd be curious about your feedback. Other things, too, is mobile commerce, such as flash sales, and I think, again, is a geofencing type of application. Here we have Best Buy may want to sell TVs suddenly in their store or in, say, some radius around the store. They can create coupons. They can make announcements that the prices of TVs have gone down by 50% for the next day or so. It's a very compelling idea, I think, for retail. But I think as I'm concluding my comments here, you know, I see in the mobile payment space, geofencing, security applications. There's a bunch of mashups that can happen along with locations, such as analytics. By the way, I was just talking to a retailer who said, I want to know within a meter of where someone's standing before they buy something. And this is an electronics retailer saying they want to know what someone was looking at prior to purchasing some goods. But in my concluding remarks then, it's just, we're definitely very excited in working on technologies, both of the chip, software, and server level. And I see a tremendous amount of opportunities and applications. Definitely interested to talk to you individually about where this could go. We definitely don't come from your world, so be definitely very open to hearing some suggestions and ideas for businesses going forward. Thank you very much.